Boarding a commercial airplane requires a suspension of personal autonomy. You are cramming into a pressurized aluminum tube with hundreds of strangers, navigating narrow aisles and submitting to a highly regimented system of control. Part of that system relies on a universal agreement. The moment those heavy cabin doors shut, your personal communication devices must go dark. But if one person simply decides the rules do not apply to them, the entire machinery of air travel halts. Decying the pre-flight technology blackout triggers a severe operational collapse, forcing modern aircraft to abandon the runway entirely. On a Monday evening at Miami International Airport, Delta Flight 1323 was fully loaded with over 160 passengers, pushing back from the gate for a routine departure to Atlanta. The massive Airbus A330 began its slow roll toward the runway. In business class, a 39-year-old passenger remained actively engaged in a live phone call. The flight crew issued their standard pre-flight instructions. The passenger ignored them. Attendants then escalated to repeated, direct commands for her to hang up the phone. She ignored those, too. Once the landing gear is rolling on the tarmac, an uncooperative passenger poses a direct threat to active flight operations. The physical forward motion of the aircraft removes any room for negotiation. The passenger escalated her defiance, shouting profanities at the flight attendants and the travelers seated around her as they asked her to end the call. The atmosphere in the cabin rapidly deteriorated. Polite pleas from neighbors dissolved into collective anger, with surrounding travelers breaking into an aggressive, unified chant demanding she get off the plane. With order in the cabin completely lost, the airline's zero-tolerance policy for disruptive behavior dictated the next move. The pilot aborted the takeoff sequence. This map shows the massive logistical reversal. The flight crew stopped their momentum, cleared a path, and navigated the heavy Airbus A330 back to the terminal. To restore operational authority, pilots physically anchored the aircraft at the gate. The engine spun down, but the crisis inside the locked cabin was far from over. A tense standoff had taken hold at the gate. The crew issued a final, direct order for the disruptive passenger to gather her belongings and voluntarily exit the aircraft. She planted herself in her seat and refused to move. This absolute refusal pushed the situation beyond the authority of flight attendants. Local law enforcement was dispatched to the physical gate to intervene. The crew then announced their absolute last resort, a complete deplaning. Every single innocent passenger on board was forced to collect their carry-on bags and evacuate. Modern aviation security protocols leave no room for compromise. If a single individual poses a threat and refuses to be isolated, the entire collective absorbs the penalty to guarantee safety. Over 160 furious, delayed passengers flooded out of the cabin, hauling their luggage up the jet bridge and into the terminal. In the middle of the mass evacuation, the disruptive passenger attempted a quiet exit, trying to blend in with the very crowd she had just displaced. But Miami-Dade police officers were waiting right at the jet bridge. They intercepted her and issued a final legal warning. When she continued to ignore the officers' instructions, they placed her under immediate physical arrest. The exact second she defied the final crew order to leave the plane voluntarily, she forfeited her status as a paying consumer and became a criminal trespasser. That trespassing charge in Miami is just the beginning, because commercial airspace is governed by the sweeping national power of federal aviation law. Under the Federal Aviation Administration, failing to follow a crew member's instruction is explicitly criminalized, as it directly interferes with their official duties. This counteracts the massive financial penalties facing violators. Beyond strict travel restrictions and potential jail time, a single incident of defiance compounds into civil penalties of up to $13,910. Once the cabin was cleared of the disruption, the travelers reboarded. Delta Flight 1323 finally departed for Atlanta, roughly an hour behind schedule. The rules of flying rely on a social contract, but they are enforced by ironclad federal statutes. On a commercial flight, a crew member's instruction is an absolute, non-negotiable command.